whatever reason, this is a bit of a controversial topic. Why? No idea? Yeah. Maybe companies move it out instead of manufacturing here in the United States. What was the main economy in the U.S. from like 1945 to about 1980s? What was it primarily? Manufacturing economy, right? Are we still? We're moving into what we call a knowledge economy. That's why the college degree is so important. Because it's more about what you can do with your mind. Because what's happened to the manufacturing jobs? Machinery, and we've shipped them out. Mexico, Guatemala, Philippines, Honduras, Vietnam, Thailand. Why would we do that? Okay, it's cheaper. So because it's cheaper, what happens to company margins? They go up. What happens to company profits when margins go up? They go up. What's the downside? The moral thing? In what regard?
Maybe they're using a
Sweatshop, cheap labor, child labor? Yeah, it's all possible. But what about locally? Why is it bad?
taking money away.
Less workplace for employees.
People get laid off. And it's harder for them to find jobs, right? If there's not those types of jobs available, it's tougher. And so that's true. You don't have to write everything down on here. But understand, technology has changed. Yesterday I spent 7 hours on an airplane. Got halfway across the world. Not quite, quarter way. I've got a colleague literally halfway across the world right now in about 14 hours. He can be across the world. Products get shipped across the world via air cargo. Products get shipped via ships. And because of things like the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, it's not difficult for us to have jobs or products manufactured other places and shipped to the United States. And if it's cheaper for you, the end consumer, is that a good thing? Yeah? It's also brought up a lot of the rest of the world out of poverty. Because now they have exposure to Western markets or larger markets. And so that's there. And so also people are no longer bound by geographical concentration in their career. The data is very clear that of your generation, when you enter the workforce, 3 out of 4, meaning 75% of you, are going to have an international component to your job. You're either going to work for a company that's got operations overseas, you're going to be required to travel overseas, you're going to be managing partners, and with Zoom technology sped up during the pandemic, that's going to accelerate. Because the technology just keeps getting better and better and better. And so we know that 90% of the companies that do business globally want people who understand international issues. They want you to have intercultural competence. They want you to be able to speak a foreign language. They want you to be competent enough to travel around the world without embarrassing the company. They want that. This is going to come back into play in a little bit. Additionally, my data is a little outdated because they've just released some new ones. The U.S. has about 330 million people, but the world has 8.1 billion. So why do you just want to focus, if you're an international company, why do you just want to focus here? There's so much more out there in the world. And so these are some companies I wanted to see if you know who they are. What's the top left? Toyota. Do they have plants in the United States? Yeah. Do they have plants in Europe? Well, where are they actually from? Japan. What about this one? Anybody know that one? Go ahead.
I don't remember the full name, but I know it's something core. My dad worked for them.
Interesting. They must have a very similar logo. This is actually BP, Beyond Petroleum, an English oil company. We all know that one, don't we? Walmart. I have a picture on my phone of a Walmart in China.
What?
Mm-hmm.
How's that?
There's a Walmart. Let me go inside.
Was it any different?
No, it was actually Walmart. But in the UK, when I'm over there, theirs is the half logo, so it's only like this top half, not the bottom. And it's marketed ASDA, it's not marketed Walmart. Yeah. And we had a German student in my last class, and I asked her if they had Walmart in Germany, and she said no. But what do they have in Germany that we now have here? Aldi. It's a German grocery store. Yeah. What about this one? Nobody got it in the last class. Asian. Finance. Bank. 4 letters. H. S. B. You've not heard of HSBC? Don't y'all watch Netflix?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, go watch the like money laundering one, and they're like right in the middle of it. Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, HSBC Bank. What about this one? Another bank. German. Bottom right. Blue. Deutsche Bank. That one's had some heat on it right now because of our former president, some of the business dealings they've had. They've had all their records subpoenaed. Right or wrong, just is what it is. But that's an international bank, Deutsche Bank. But they all have offices everywhere. We've got 3 in Wichita Falls. You know what Howmet is? Arconic now? They manufacture parts for the jumbo jet engines. They have a plant here, they have plants in Mexico, plants in France, plants in Germany, plants in Japan. So they're all across the world. We have a glass manufacturing company. Used to be something different now, it's called Vitro. They manufacture car windshields. Ship them across the country and the world. Over in Iowa Park, we have Sealed Air, Cryovac. So when you go in the grocery store and you go to buy meat and it's in that vacuum seal, that's them. Okay, one of my friends is a quality control manager. He travels around the U.S. and occasionally internationally to make sure that the customers are happy. So these are companies that might have started small or had a plant here, but now these are multinational companies. And there's people working for them in all of our communities. And you potentially might be too. So as we go through this quickly, you don't need to write it down, but understand there will be a continuing role for developing nations such as India and Brazil. Trade disputes between countries reshaping alliances and partnerships. What's some examples of that? Russia, Ukraine. Russia's been blocked off to most of the Western world for its products. They can't get ours. We're not taking theirs. It's also happening in China. Anybody actually pay attention about a week or 2 ago when the Chinese re-elected their president for another 5-year term? It's like the first time in a long time they've had one go past more than 2. They had term limits and they kind of did away with it to let this one stay for another 5. And it's something he said in that acceptance speech that sparked a lot of worry in Western leaders. What did he say?
Continuing partnership with Russia.
Yeah, he did tell him not to use the bad weapons though, but he said that China, I guess a lot of weapons are bad, the really bad ones, the nukes. But he told his own government that they needed to prepare for war.
With Taiwan.
That's the thought, is that might mean that they're leaning towards invading Taiwan to bring them back under the Chinese government. Why does that matter? Because the US, Japan, South Korea, European nations have a joint defense agreement with Taiwan because of our national interests.
So China attacks Taiwan,
Potentially. Now, what is one of the things, we've got war, right? Like actual military war that we're witnessing in the Ukraine and Russia. But what has also Russia done that's a type of warfare? Cyber, but what else? Keep going.
economic.
Yeah, economic warfare. What have they done?
They canceled, but they stopped.
Stop shipping oil and gas to Europe, trying to freeze them out. They started blowing up the infrastructure in Ukraine so that people don't have running water or electricity. Okay? Why are Western leaders about Chinese adopting a war mindset? Because what do we rely on as individuals? Chinese goods and services. And so what happens if we're in a hostile state with China to those goods and services? And then what happens when the supply drops off, but demand stays high? You have a shortage. Prices go up. And that's what Putin is trying to use to break the will of Europe to stop supporting the Ukraine, is make it so hurtful for people not on the battlefield with prices and inconvenience that they will lose their will to support the Ukrainians. Don't think that China won't do the same thing if we get into a hostile war there. So it's good because we benefited from cheap goods, but we have to be prepared for that as a country and as a Western alliance. A rise in multinational enterprises, businesses that manufacture and market products in more than one country, like we've been showing. Increasing democratization as more nations move towards free market economies, the opportunities for international business will grow. Who benefited the most from opening up and democratizing their business? China. Huge floods of investment coming into the country in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. But they started ratcheting it back a little bit. Could be. I mean, there's been a lot of companies that have started doing business in China. Now it's starting to slow down. But this last one, especially in Europe, they have different rules for the tech companies because they understand how valuable your data is. So tech laws are going to play an important factor going forward in the managing of international business via the tech world. All right, again, you don't have to look at this. I could not find more updated data, so this is a couple years old, somewhat irrelevant, but I want you to know that you can see which countries have had some of the fastest economic growth. China and India. And that's been pretty historical. Okay? Brazil was down, they're coming back up. The United States has stayed pretty level in the low one or high ones, low twos. Except for this year, we're actually down. Canada as well. So you can see the major developed economies, the rate at which they traditionally grow, and you see China and India grow faster than the others. Now, this was some Texas demographics. I cannot find the updated ones from this, so if somebody does, shoot them to me. But this was showing the projection of what was going to happen demographically in the state in a 5-year period, to where Spanish-speaking households were going to continue to increase in the amount. Personally, and I would not have said that, I would not have understood this when I was a student, but I understand it now from the world that I work in. I think it will be one of the fundamental errors that we have made in U.S. educational policy is removing foreign languages out of our degree plans. We are the only country across the world that does not require their individuals to learn more than one language. You had to take English classes, didn't you? Yep. Almost every other country requires students to take at least one other language. Anybody actually required to take it in your degree plan here at Midwestern? Only a handful of you. And so as the need grows, especially in Texas, for Spanish-speaking employment, people who have that skill are going to be at an advantage. Alright, it's just a quick picture of the world. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with North Texas. I hope to spend the rest of my life in this general region. But if that's all you focus on, I really think you're making a drastic mistake. Because there's so much out there, and there's so much opportunity, there's so much potential, there's so much culture to experience and enjoy, that I want you to see that there's nothing wrong with that. But get out and explore the world some. A, it'll make you more employable. But B, it'll make you, I think, understand the world better. Alright, I do want you to know these. Imports and exports. Imports were buying products from another country. Import means you're buying something and bringing it, here in the U.S., it means you're buying it somewhere else and bringing it into the United States. You go to the store, you go to Walmart today and you buy produce, and you buy bananas that were picked in Honduras, or limes that were grown in Mexico. Those are imports. You log on to Amazon and you buy something that ships from China, that's an import. Something you're buying from another country and bringing to the United States. Export's just the opposite. Something manufactured here, sent out. The U.S. is the largest importing nation in the world, and now the second largest exporting nation. We used to be number 3. Who was ahead of us? China's number 1. No. It's actually a little surprising because they're not a huge country. Germany. What did they export? Cars. All over Europe. But the U.S. overtook them. Why? What did we get better at in the last 15 years? No, not cars. Something that goes in a car.
Like electric car.
Huh?
Electric car.
Oil. Oil. We learned how to frack. And we learned how to start extracting more oil out of the ground through fracking. So much so that we became energy independent. We weren't required to import Russian oil, Venezuelan oil, Middle Eastern oil. We had enough here. We actually started exporting oil. And I think it will be a colossal error on our part that we have started to restrict that. Do you think we need the green economy or not? It's not the point. But the world still needs oil. And if we're not going to fulfill it, somebody else is. Anybody go to the speaker here last Thursday? The guy that was the fossil fuel guy? He's like a CEO and an author. Okay, never mind. I was just curious if it was good. Heard he was an excellent speaker. Free trade, the movement of goods and services amongst different areas. So like NAFTA. Which I know Trump redid it and they called it like NAFTA 2.0, but he renamed it like US MCS or something like that. But all it does is basically remove the trade barriers between Canada, the United States, Mexico, and Central America so that products can flow real easily without tariffs and taxes being placed on that. The European Union is a good example of that. So they've removed a lot of the barriers to trade. Britain leaves the European Union, now they got to go renegotiate all of their trade agreements as part of that. So those are good things to help with the movement of goods and services amongst nations. Trade surplus, I do want you to know the surplus, exports is greater than imports. Deficit, imports greater than exports. Since 1975, the United States has been in a trade deficit because we import more than we export. It depends. So the question was, is this a bad thing to be in a trade deficit? I think if you asked 100 economists, you'd get 50 that say it was bad and 50 that would say it was good. So I don't know that I have a good answer for that. Because when you import things, that usually means your consumers are getting them cheaper. So consumer costs are down. But when you're exporting, it usually means more jobs. So it's like the trade-off of, what's better, to have jobs or to have cheaper prices? Somebody say something? All right. Too fast? Just get the summary of it. A surplus is exports greater than imports. Deficit is imports greater than exports. And that we've been in a trade deficit for the last 50 years. All right, exchange rates. This is important for you to just conceptually understand. This is something I deal with a lot. So exchange rates is simply what currency are you doing business in? Are you doing business in US dollars? Are you doing business in euros? Are you doing business in British pounds? Yesterday for me it was Eastern Caribbean dollars. Could be Chinese yuan. What are you using? What's your currency? Rios? So the exchange rate, the rate at which one country's currency is converted into another. So in half of my job, the study abroad side, I'm doing business where I want a strong dollar. So which is better? It depends. Exporters prefer a weaker dollar because that means that people in foreign countries, their currency is stronger. So if our price is 10 US, in the Eastern Caribbean, that's 26 their local currency. So they would rather our dollar be weaker to where 10 might be equal to 20, and it's saving them money. You understand that? So for international students coming in, you want the dollar to be weaker because you want your currency to be worth more. So on that side of my job, I need a weak dollar. On the other side of my job, where I'm buying dorm rooms and services across the world for study abroad programs, I want a strong dollar. And in fact, I was supposed to make my second payment to Queen Mary University in London for dorm rooms. It'll end up being about $200,000, so about 160,000 pounds for all of that this upcoming summer. Well, because the UK can't keep a prime minister past a couple of 4 or 5 weeks, would they just lose it or got rid of one after 4 weeks the other day? Their currency's been really down. I wasn't supposed to make my next payment until December. I actually asked the business office to make it 2 weeks ago, and we saved about 15% just on the exchange rate, and it's already gone back up since it's stabilized. So you can save a lot of money if you just know historically what's happening in the exchange rate area. So it matters, and so it's probably too basic for me to quiz you on what an import and export is. It's probably more realistic for me to ask you about surplus, deficits, and when do you want a strong dollar versus a weak dollar. So exporters want weak dollars, importers want strong dollars. And just understand that concept as to why. Okay, so we talked about that 90% of businesses want people who have an understanding of international culture, trade, language, etc. The University of California at Merced did the biggest study I know of related to American students studying abroad as part of their education. And what they found was, and they compared, 97% of students who studied abroad found employment within 12 months of graduation in the fields that they were looking. There was only about 50% in that same time period of non-study abroad students found the equal level of employment. The ones that studied abroad earned 25% higher starting salary. And 84% of students who studied abroad felt it helped them build valuable skills for the market. You've heard me talk about this. So the companies want those students, right? So there's this high demand. Only 4 to 6% of our American students will actually do this. So what's our supply? Really low. So are we surprised by the data? No, it's just basic supply and demand. If something's in demand, there's not a lot of people that have it, those people are going to have more opportunity. Now, do you have to study abroad? No. You can still get 95% of American students don't. But I think it professionally makes a profound difference for you. And so next week, in your passport, next week is the International Education Week, in your passport, you have the option to come learn about these for extra credit points. All right, they're going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. They're all in Building 101. On Monday, it's about London. Tuesday, it's about Spain and France. And on Wednesday, it's about Berlin and Grenada. So the programs that we have, you can get French language credits in France if you want those. 6 credits. If you want to go to Spain, you can get 6 credits of Spanish language. Okay, maybe you need it in your degree plan, or maybe you're majoring or minoring in Spanish, or you just want it for your knowledge. You can have that. These are language programs in Spain and France. This is actually where I was yesterday. It was in that building right there, that building, and then they built a brand new one over here. So this is a program on the island of Grenada, down in the South Caribbean, almost to the coast of Venezuela. It's in the May mini term. This is for freshmen, sophomores. So if you're pre-med, pre-vet, or you're going into one of the health fields such as nursing, respiratory care, etc., this is something you might want to consider because it's a health-focused course. But you don't have to have prerequisites. It's a core course. Anybody can take it and make an A.
How long are you over there?
This one?
Yeah.
It's about 17 nights. This one's got 2.5 weeks. So it's a mini term. It's a May mini term.
How long are the normal terms?
4 weeks in the summer. So the Spain, France, and London, you're gone about 5 weeks. And this one, you're there 17 nights, and you have the opportunity to take a Midwestern class, taught by a Midwestern faculty member. We have a program in Berlin, Germany, which is 19 days, and this one includes a weekend trip to Rome as part of it. And this is where you can get a lot of your core classes. Maybe you need an American history class, maybe you need an intro soc, maybe you need a human diversity, maybe you need school and society. There's all these sections of the core you need. So if you're thinking about this, also come to one of these sessions, but also tell your academic advisor. Because you can go and study in Germany, and like the intro sociology class, they're trying to plan a trip to Auschwitz in Poland, or to Dachau, to one of the big concentration camps, to understand how that happened in German society and its impact on the world. So these are things you're never going to be able to do as part of your program if you stay here. So I want you to consider these. That was 19 days, weekend trip to Rome. We buy your airfare